Hello, everybody. If you are just joining, it looks like we have a few people trickling in for our Utah After School Network's After School Nugget. This is Rachel with Science Action Club. Um, as you're trickling in, we have a kind of warm-up icebreaker up on the screen already to kind of get you thinking and in the space of STEM and science today. So I'll introduce it and I'll probably repeat myself a few times as people trickle in. But we have this activity from our Bird Scouts unit up on the board called Spot the Differences. So in this one, we ask the youth in our programs to use field marks to tell the difference between these two similar looking birds. So as we let people trickle in, see if you can identify at least 5 differences between these two birds. And you can kind of just list it on a piece of paper or think about it as you're looking through that. So we'll be starting probably a few minutes after 11. We'll let a few other people trickle in and gather. And I'll have a few more sips of my coffee. Great, I'm seeing a lot more people come on. Welcome. This is Utah After School Network's After School Nugget webinar. My name is Rachel with Science Action Club. And as you're trickling in and settling down, we have a icebreaker that you can do from the comfort of your own desk or couch, wherever you are dialing in from today. This is called Spot the Differences. And in this, we ask that the youth and the adults that we're doing it with use field marks to tell the difference between these similar looking birds. So as you're settling in, go ahead and see if you can spot at least 5 differences between these two birds here. We can put our science hats on and start to brainstorm and observe. Cool. Okay, we'll be starting a few minutes after 11. Go ahead, settle in, make sure your coffee cup is filled up. And Angel, I'll be using the chat box for a few of the activities throughout. Am I going to be able to see that on my end once it starts popping up?
Yeah, so if you go to the top, if you take your mouse to the top of your screen, there should be a little toolbar that pops up. And then
Okay.
there should be a chat option, and then that'll allow you to open the chat box.
Okay.
Do you see it there? Let me send a chat, and maybe it'll pop up for you.
Good idea.
All right.
Awesome. I got it. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Okay. Oops. Let me start that over. Okay. And I see a few more people have joined. Again, my name is Rachel with Science Action Club. We'll be starting, it's just 11 now, so we'll give people a few more minutes to trickle in and settle into the webinar. As you are settling in, we have a icebreaker warm-up for you to get your science hats on for the morning or the afternoon. This is called Spot the Differences. This is from Science Action Club's Bird Scout unit. And it's an awesome way for youth to start getting their observation skills sharpened and practice those. So I'm going to ask that as you're settling in and right before we start, to try to spot the differences yourself between these two birds. So see if you can identify at least 5 different differences between these. And you can start chatting them into the chat box if you want. We are just hitting our time. So you can let me know what you're seeing as differences between these two birds. Awesome. Seeing a lot of people join today. This is so exciting. Thanks for coming. Okay, Maddie's seeing one with a spotted belly and one without. Totally. That is a great one. Patterns are important. Tail feathers, yes, another indication. And also the color of the head, yes. One has a fully red head, so I'm seeing on the right-hand side, lots of red. On the left-hand side, we have just kind of that patch at the back of their neck. Katie's saying feathers are different all around. We're getting lots of different patterns here, definitely. Yeah, size of the beak. That's another very, a little bit more subtle of a one, but definitely a difference between the two. One's a little bit longer and almost more raised. Acorns on the tree, yes, food sources. Good observation. Excellent. So as you are joining, I'll introduce myself again. This is Rachel with Science Action Club. This is Utah After School Network's After School Nugget. As we're settling in, we'll give people another minute or two to join the webinar. We're playing Spot the Differences. This is one of the activities from Science Action Club's Bird Scouts units, and we're just trying to find differences between these two birds. We're chatting some in, so as you settle in, kind of do your own observations and chat some in that you see yourself. Yeah, Katie's saying the leaves are different as well. Could indicate we're in a different habitat with this bird, the two birds. Okay. Okay, Katie also says as brown marks coming down from the beaks are different in the shade and the sizes of it as well. Totally different patterns, different indications. I'm seeing the eye location is also very different. As I'm looking for the one that Katie just indicated, I'm noticing some newer differences that are kind of coming up. So as you observe these two birds longer, you're seeing more and more kind of unfold between this. Your observation skills are getting sharper. Great. We'll spend one more minute on this and then we'll jump into our program as well. If you're just joining us, we are spotting the differences between these two birds. And my name is Rachel with Science Action Club. Excited to be starting this in a moment or two. Okay, Kelly's saying that head sizes are different. We're also seeing differences in the thickness of the legs. These are great. We're getting a lot more detailed and specific. Awesome. Okay, feet are different colors. We're getting a lot more than 5. This is great, everybody. Totally. Okay, I see a lot of amazing people on this chat, a lot of people that have signed in. I think this is a great time to start and jump in. You are on the After School Nugget of the Utah After School Network program, and my name is Rachael Van Schoik. I'm a partner of UAN's based in San Francisco, and I'm really excited to be here. I'll go ahead and jump in to who I am, where I'm coming from, and then we can have some fun a little later practicing science and STEM activities. So you should see the next slide on my screen. My name is Rachel again with Science Action Club. My goals for today during the next hour that we're together is we're going to actually practice science. We're going to dig into learning some strategies on how to be a good STEM facilitator and honestly, just a good facilitator in general. They definitely feed into each other. And we're going to find ways that we can lower the barrier to access STEM and to access science and find ways that we can do these things anywhere and anytime. So you'll walk away with things that you can start doing today in your own science practice and facilitation strategies you can start using with your own staff as well. I will give an overview of what Science Action Club is, and then we're going to dive into one of our resources called the Teaching Toolbox and practice there. And then we'll explore what citizen science is. Some of you might have used this as a tool before, and we have some practice that we'll be doing today, as well as a global movement all of y'all can join after this call to practice it yourself. And then I'll leave plenty of time at the end for us to answer questions and engage in a little bit more of a conversation. I do have the chat box up here, so if you have any questions that are flowing from the slides that I'm on, feel free to chat them in and I can answer them as we go. But Science Action Club is an education initiative, and it was developed by the California Academy of Sciences, which is based in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. And the Academy is a really special place. We're an aquarium, a rainforest, a planetarium, and a natural history museum. And we're all housed under this beautiful green roof that you can see on the slide here on a nice atypical sunny day in San Francisco. Usually it's fog up there. Our mission at the Academy is to explore, explain, and sustain life on Earth. And what I find really special about the Academy is not only are we a museum, but we are also a research institution. We have over 200 scientists that we have on staff that are working all around the world studying biodiversity and sustainability. And within that research division, we have a citizen science team that works on projects that helps get scientists and non-scientists alike working together and learning about the natural world. They've provided inspiration for projects like iNaturalist and City Nature Challenge, which help inform the wider research community. And we'll be able to dive into that a little bit later and practice some of that citizen science. But what Science Action Club actually looks like in action is a lot of what you did in Spot the Differences in that first slide that we had together. It's opportunities for youth and the adults that are facilitating Science Action Club to make observations, to kind of sharpen those skills, to connect to nature, and to learn how to build the skills to follow a citizen science protocol. So it's a way to really learn all the steps that are involved in that. Science Action Club is a content provider, which means we provide kits, curriculum, and really robust staff training for out-of-school time programs all across the country. We have 3 hands-on environmental science units, Bird Scouts. You had a little teaser of that with Spot the Differences. The other one is Bug Safari, which is my personal favorite, and then Cloud Quest, which is what we'll be practicing a little later. And each of those 3 citizen science units have a project that they're anchored in. So through the 12, 60 to 90-minute sessions, there's a guidebook, a full kit of tools and materials and professional development that link to each of those units. And we really believe that a lot of the success of the program is making sure the staff are prepared as well. So all of our educators go through really rigorous training and resources to make sure they're excited and they're empowered to teach STEM and teach science wherever they are. And we really see Science Action Club as a tool that can be run anywhere and anytime. We've collaborated with libraries, after school programs, all sorts of folks all across the country. And we are excited to help support all of these programs right now as well. We understand we're in a very, very unique time. So a lot of the resources that we're going to be exploring today come from Science Action Club's model and can be used today, can be used virtually, they can be adapted for the environment that we're in. So jumping into what the citizen science projects actually look like and what they are between each of the units, on this slide you can see all of the partners that we're working with the different units we have. So Bird Scouts collaborates with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and eBird, so you can identify and upload checklists of birds. Bug Safari uses iNaturalist, which is an app that has artificial intelligence that actually tells you and kind of guides you to identify species that you're observing. And then CloudQuest uses the Globe Observer program that partners with NASA. So it helps to validate and calibrate the data that you're collecting about the sky and feeds up into NASA, which is a really exciting experience for the youth that are working. So that's kind of Science Action Club as an overview and as a high-level snapshot of what's going on. Today, I did want to dive into some activities that help us become stronger STEM facilitators and facilitators in general. And the tool that we use for that is called the Science Action Club Teaching Toolbox. So here are the set of tools that any STEM facilitator and generally a facilitator for all different subjects can use to easily adopt into their own practice. And what we're trying to achieve here is creating a safe environment for youth to learn and a fun environment for them to learn. We know that leading STEM activities with youth takes practice. And frankly, leading any activity with youth takes practice and it takes skill. And using these strategies and combining them with the expertise that you already have as an educator and as a youth developer can really push your practice as a STEM educator. I'm going to go over the 5 of them really briefly, and then we're going to dive into 2 of them a little more, and I'm going to ask that you practice them with me today. So the first strategy in our teaching toolbox is building a STEM identity. This is a way for youth to feel like they have a space in science. They can be a scientist if they want to, and they can do real science. Our second strategy is connecting to prior knowledge. I see this in action all the time at out-of-school programs. Asking them if they've seen these animals before, asking them what they learned about in school that day to help them connect the dots and kind of bridge things and build things up. The third strategy is asking higher order questions. This is a tool to continue the conversation, to challenge them to think about their opinions and the data that they're working with. The fourth strategy is be a guide on the side. You want to be kind of the structure and the facilitator of the experience and let those youth lead it so they can go through those activities themselves and engage with that. And last but not least, facilitating discussions. We know how powerful this is for our adult learning, and we know how powerful it is for youth learning as well. So those are our 5 teaching toolbox strategies. We are going to dive into building a STEM identity today. So thinking about this a little bit more, learning how to help youth think and act like scientists is what is the essence of building a STEM identity. It's how one person's life relates to the fields of STEM and all the different varieties. And when they have a positive STEM identity, youth feel active, they feel fun when they're experiencing STEM, they feel connected to STEM topics in the real world, and they have access to role models and STEM professionals that look like them and that are practicing STEM skills. And it really helps them tackle and solve challenging problems within their own world and their own identities. I really have to attribute a lot of my positive STEM identity to my father, who was able to just let me access science and play around with science with him. And I was able to see a space for myself in that world. And it's no wonder I'm working on science content development today and in a science museum today. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do today is to help me work through this activity, which we call Words Matter. You can find it in our online training. And these 4 statements that you see up on the slide, some of them are ones that help youth promote a positive STEM identity, and some of them are ones that maybe are a little more discouraging and don't actually promote STEM identity. So I'm going to ask that you read through these 4 statements, and identify which statements you think do not help youth build a positive STEM identity. When you've identified one of those, I'm going to ask that you kind of rework that statement, or maybe invent a whole new statement yourself that does promote a positive STEM identity, and go ahead and chat that into the chat box. So I'll repeat that again. Read through these 4 statements in Words Matter, this activity, and find out which ones you think are not helping promote a positive STEM identity in youth. Which one of these statements would make a youth feel less motivated to participate, basically? And when you found one of those statements, try to rework it, try to rephrase that or repackage it in a different way, or come up with your own statement that would get kids excited for youth there. Awesome. I'm seeing some really great adaptations. Oh, a lot for number 2. Science is for everybody. Science is for all of us. That's fantastic. I'll let people kind of think through this a little bit more and chat some more in. Missy saying we're being scientists today. Great. We are working like scientists. Hey, let's figure out how science can be fun for you. I like that one from Elizabeth. That's a really great way to help that individual student. Sometimes there's one youth in our program that we really want to encourage a little bit more. Let's make our hypotheses together. That's great, using those science words. And you might even have some strategies that you use already that you can chat into the chat box, phrases that you like to use. And these could even be phrases from other topics and programs as well. So if you teach art, for example, what are ways that you can get youth to get excited about art and to feel creative? Chaz is saying number 3, we can say instead, we are all scientists and we are going to show how. I like that action at the end of it. Karen is saying science has so many fields, it can be for everyone. I think that's a great sentiment. Science and STEM is such a big field. There's so many ways that youth can feel like they're a part of it and they can engage with that, definitely. Okay. I'll give everybody another minute or 2 if they want to add in any final thoughts. But this is, all of these statements are really exciting ways for youth to have that positivity, to continue to feel curious and confident about their world. And it's really a way to feel like they can tackle new challenges. I've learned through science that science is a way of thinking and it's a style of thinking that is really applicable to many different parts of my life and has helped me be a really positive troubleshooter and way to think through things. Yeah, Katie is saying art is science too. That's a fantastic sentiment. We do have some lessons where we try to bridge that together. It really is a beautiful marriage between those two. And last but not least, as youth see themselves as scientists and they're capable of understanding and navigating the world out there, they know that that's a way that they can make a living and they can kind of grow up to be these people and these scientists. So it's really exciting to see. Awesome. Thank you all for engaging in that with me. Very exciting. I'm going to go on to our next one here. Okay. So we are going to make another deep dive into one of our teaching toolboxes here. This is one of the categories called asking higher order questions. So with this one, this is an opportunity for us to think about ways that we can engage the youth in more investigative questions. That's what I'm trying to say there. We want them to feel a little bit more excited and empowered to challenge themselves and to connect their opinions to data. So when you're seeing higher order questions in action, these 3 bullet points are kind of highlighting what's going on in the youth. They're connecting data to their opinions, they're reasoning through things. You can kind of see their thought process there, and they're applying their learning to their everyday life. How does this connect to what I'm going to do at home? How does this connect to my community? Other questions might have simple, concrete answers, like facts or recalling information. And these types of knowledge questions are important checks. You want to make sure that they are there with you and they're understanding what's going on. The higher order questions are a really exciting way to challenge them to take it a step further. A kind of cheat code for this one is these are simply just not asking yes or no questions. So framing a question is something bigger than that. And with this one, I always like to take a note from the acting and improvisation world. When you are improvising a scene and you don't want it to stop, you can often say yes and. So you're responding to them, you're affirming them, but you are continuing that conversation and you're moving forward. So you can say yes and as you're discussing science lessons as a way to continue that forward. So for our next activity that I'm going to ask you to chat in again, I want you to imagine that you have a group of youth and you've just finished playing a game about birds and predators. And the activity leader, the educator that's facilitating the discussion afterwards, is asking a few of the following questions. I'll click over to that slide. So here are the 3 questions that this educator can ask after the game about predators and birds. And similar to the last activity, I want you to go through these and identify which ones you think are not higher order questions. Which ones are kind of giving you a simple answer. And once you've identified those, again, kind of repackage it and reword it for a way that can be a higher order question, that can extend their reasoning and their critical thinking, can promote more discussion either internally with that youth or amongst the group as well. So I'll give you a few moments to read through these questions and think of ways that you can repackage the questions that you see that you think maybe would halt the conversation. What's another way we can ask this and another way that we can encourage higher order question thinking and practices within the youth there. So I'll let I'm seeing some thinking faces on the videos here. I'll give everybody a few moments to work through that one. And I can go ahead and read through the knowledge check questions here for folks. The first one is, who won, the predators or the birds? The second one is, why would a bird need to protect its eggs? And the third one is, how many eggs were stolen? So which one of these are kind of just a knowledge check question, and which ones can you rephrase to be a much more bigger discussion? Seeing Katie said, what did the predators do to get the eggs from the nests? I like that. What strategies? Do you think the birds were effective in trying to protect their eggs? I like that too. So they're kind of thinking back on what they were doing within that game. They're trying to connect it to the knowledge that they have. Great ones, Katie. Anybody else have any other thoughts on how to repackage this? Chaz is thinking for number 1, we can also ask, what do you think why do you think the particular group won? If there were no predators or birds, what do you think would happen to the environment? Great question to relate to kind of the bigger challenges of our time. Why do you think it's important for the birds to protect their eggs? These are all great adaptations on thinking, how can we connect the ideas of this game to what actually happened and how can we ask them bigger questions? Kelly's thinking, did you notice how many eggs were stolen? So if there were some sneaky strategies that were used by the predators, what were things that they could do there? Great. Give everybody one more moment if there's any other higher order questions they want to chat in here. Great. Thank you for participating in all of this. And I will say that higher order questions are definitely ones that are a little bit harder to wrap your mind around. Sometimes it's a little more challenging to ask yourself how you would ask the youth to be more engaged in this content and this activity. So this is a really great tool for folks to engage in the content and engage with the youth a little bit more. Okay. I just want to recap this section. We are going to go over the teaching toolbox one more time. These were the 5 strategies we went over. We did a deep dive into 2 of them. And again, we know that leading activities with youth takes practice, it takes skill. And using these strategies and combining it with the practices that you've already done and the expertise you already have really helps to push your practice as a educator, and also if you manage staff, how to challenge them to be really good at their practice too. These are all strategies that we use in our Science Action Club training. So at the beginning of all the training, we go over this teaching toolbox, we explore some of these concepts, and then later on in our training, when we're going over the lessons and the activities and we're practicing those within Science Action Club, what we can do is actually call out some of these positive practices that we've seen in our educators. So I can say, hey, Jim, when you were leading Spot the Differences, I saw a really fantastic way for you to connect to prior knowledge. And that way you're giving a really positive affirmation to the educator so they can see where they're succeeding, but also so that you can see other educators and borrow some of their strategies they're using to build a positive STEM identity or some of these other strategies in there. So it's a really positive feedback loop for folks to build up their own practice and see how other people do this. And it's just a positive way to build up a wider community and all the work that they do. So thanks for engaging in the teaching toolbox with me from Science Action Club. I hope some of these tips are helpful to you as you're thinking about virtual engagement and ways that you can kind of integrate these things today, tomorrow, next week, and making that STEM engagement more exciting for youth. I want to transition now to another key feature of Science Action Club that is pretty exciting for both youth and adults. This is citizen science. Citizen science, if you haven't engaged with it before, is often called community science as well. And it's truly a global movement where it combines scientists and non-scientists alike. And it empowers them to start observing the natural world, collecting information about it, and helping some of the really big questions that we have about the planet, helping answer some of those. And through citizen science experiences, we've seen that youth learn the process of science investigation and discovery, and they can really make valuable, meaning contributions to the STEM field. As youth make these authentic discoveries in their neighborhoods and contributing to these large scale global projects, they learn to develop a really intrinsic motivation to protect the species and the places that they're from. It's a really exciting opportunity. And, you know, scientists are all over the world, they're studying things, but they still need our help to collect information and to see what's going on in the ground and what's going on in our own communities. You know, there's ever so many interns and grad students that we can have working with scientists, so we need to help them too. By crowdsourcing this kind of data collection and this analysis, the citizen science movement helps science answer some big questions and to collect data. So the citizen science team at the California Academy of Science has created some really exciting projects to engage youth, families, adults, wherever you are in citizen science. And it has really created an amazing way to lower the barrier of access to these programs and these projects. One of them is iNaturalist. This is an app. I have it downloaded on my phone and I try to use it frequently. iNaturalist actually uses artificial intelligence to see, to guess what you have observed. So if you find a plant and you're not really sure what it is, you can upload it and iNaturalist will help you find that species. There's another project that the citizen science team has launched here at the Academy, and I'll click over to that slide. It is called City Nature Challenge, and it is actually launching tomorrow. This is great timing. City Nature Challenge is in its 5th year, and this is a global movement to make and share observations all around the world and make observations of nature in and around cities. So nature is something that we can find anywhere, anytime, and we'll be able to observe it in a lot of different ways. So the City Nature Challenge team is asking you to make observations wherever you are from January. Oh wow, January. I'm not even sure what month it is, everybody. April, I promise I know, April 24th to 27th. That's right. And in the year 2020, just so you know, I know what I'm talking about. So April 24th to 27th, the City Nature Challenge is open, and they're asking you to download that iNaturalist app and just go out there and observe. Find some nature in your backyard. Find it in your driveway. And believe it or not, there's even a lot of nature you can observe within your own home. So I'm going to give you a funky fact of the day. Did you know that there are, on average, 93 species of arthropods that you could find in and around your home? So nature is everywhere, and City Nature Challenge is asking you to observe and find those things over the next few days. I did, because this is such an exciting movement and there's been really cool observations all over the world, I wanted to highlight two really cool citizen science observations that have happened in City Nature Challenge. So this amazing picture that you can see here is actually a series of pictures. So in the first one, a citizen science, Alyssa, who was in Florida, saw a swallow-tailed kite, that bird, flying around with something in its talons, and it turned out to be an iguana. So she got an amazing picture of it. And in the next picture in the series, which is up on the slide now, she actually got that same bird dropping the iguana. So great timing, amazing observation. But remarkably, in the third picture she got in the series, it was actually of the iguana hitting the ground, being 100% okay, and then scurrying off. So this is just a remarkable observation and story done by a non-scientist. She was just there and excited to observe during City Nature Challenge and was able to see this really remarkable nature story happen and unfold right before her. So this one, I think I mentioned, happened in Florida. This next one I want to highlight happened in the city of all cities, New York City, right in Bronx. And in this one, apparently this owl took up an empty red-tailed hawk nest right on the corner of the Watson building near the New York Botanical Gardens. And somebody was walking by this windowsill and was able to see this little owlet right there on the windowsill and captured this amazing picture that they then contributed to City Nature Challenge. So I think it's remarkable that you can find nature anywhere, even deep in New York City, you can have such a beautiful observation like this.
Rachel,
Yes.
are these pictures right in the Nature Challenge where we could view them, pull them up?
I am not sure if they're on the platform. That is a question I can answer and maybe share in the resources after this call.
Oh, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, so
They're
one
pretty
thing that I've noticed,
remarkable.
I just downloaded the iNaturalist app on my site, and the first thing that it asked me was to see if I wanted to see submissions from my area. So I don't know if we could see things in Brooklyn, right? But we could definitely see things around our location. So that might be something helpful, Elizabeth.
Great. Thanks, Angel.
That's a great tip too. Yeah, it's much more than just an app that helps you identify the species. It is really kind of a social platform for you to engage with communities around you and see what other people are seeing around you. Yeah, thank you for that tip, Angel. So right now, in the spirit of citizen science, I thought we could practice some of these skills together with one of the units that we have in Science Action Club called Cloud Quest. I'll click over to that slide. Now, CloudQuest doesn't use iNaturalist, so this is another project that's within the citizen science industry. It uses something called the Globe Observer app. And Globe actually feeds its data up to NASA, which can be really exciting and empowering for the youth that you're working with. We are collecting data for NASA. Within this unit, we're identifying the ways that clouds, weather, and climate have a relationship with each other and what it means when those are changing in different climates. Now, I wanted to walk you through what one of these citizen science protocols might look like within a science action club. We, within the units, give them the skills to build up their understanding of the protocol. So every activity feeds up into their ability to walk through the different steps to then upload into the app. With Globe Observer within Science Action Club, we begin each session with the protocol, which we call a sky survey. We encourage youth to get into teams And this can be virtual teams, or this can be socially distanced teams. We've had CloudQuest run during this pandemic, so there are some adaptations that can happen, but we really encourage collaboration. So maybe in a virtual environment, this looks like you ask the youth to go observe on their own, and then you get together on a call and you ask them to come together, collaborate, and find consensus with all of the sky observations they had for the day, so you can submit just one of those globe observations. We give them all the tools that they need within the activity and within the kit of materials for Science Action Club's units to go through all of the observations. And because they're doing this sky survey in each of the sessions you're gathering together as a club, at the end of all of the sessions, we ask that you go back and you look at all of the observations that you had. So you can examine the data, and they can be really proud of what they've contributed to in that time together. So in action, here's what some sky survey looks like. These youth are showing off their Science Action Club notebooks where they were collecting the data and the information. And I will call out that at the end of these slides, I have a link to our program page. And on that program page is the Connect to NASA lesson, which has the sky survey steps in it. So this is a tool that you can use today. It is accessible and free to you at any time. So you are able to do this sky survey, and you're able to contribute to the Globe Observer app as a tool anytime. We really believe deeply that citizen science is something that should be accessible to all. So this is a really great starting point for you to start doing citizen science yourself with your family, or with the youth you're working with, or the staff that you're supporting right now. So to practice some of these STEM skills, I'm going to introduce you to two of the tools that we use in Sky Survey. Are adjacent to a window. I'm going to ask that you peek out there, or maybe you can step away from your computer for a moment to do the observe and do together. But first, let me introduce our two tools. So in Sky Survey, we need a handful of tools to understand how to observe the sky. Cover grid. The cloud cover grid you use to estimate during that particular day. It's a lesson in CloudQuest so that the youth are practicing this skill in each meeting. So they're learning how to estimate, they're learning how to observe, and they're kind of getting better and better at that skill. So if you imagine this cloud cover grid is an 8.5 by 11 sheet, and you're holding it up to portions of the sky and estimating the cloud cover. In Sky Survey, it's really important to do observations at low, mid, and high sky. So you'll be doing multiple estimations. Today we'll just be practicing one. So that is the tool on the left, the cloud cover grid. It's a clear grid that helps you estimate the cloud cover of the sky. And on the right, you have a color strip. So this is a way for us to find the color of the sky and tell scientists information they need to know about the atmosphere. So you would first place your back to the sun, and then you would raise this strip up to the sky at a 45-degree angle, which is just comfortably holding your arm up above your shoulder. And you would estimate the color of the sky that you're seeing at the darkest color of the sky that you're seeing. So these two tools are two steps in the sky observation. So if you're standing by a window, or if you're able to pop your head out a door to go observe the sky, I encourage you to go out there and think about how you would use these tools. Maybe hold up a notebook that you have to the sky and do an estimation of how many clouds would be within that window, within that space. But if you are not, I want to invite you to join me in this picture. You can all imagine we're at a very calming tropical island together in this very nice picture. This will be our sky observation that we can do today. And I will admit, this is the first time that I have done a virtual sky survey. So thank you for joining with me today and being a scientist with me as we practice this experiment together. So here is our sky. We can see there's some really beautiful clouds on it. I'm seeing some different gradation in the sky color as well. So what we're going to do first is we're going to use that cloud cover grid to estimate how much of the sky we're seeing. So let me go to our next slide here. You should see that grid up. Now, like I said earlier, it's important to do observations at low, mid, and high. So for this activity, we're just going to do our low sky. So we really just need to do the one estimation here. So if you could chat in the chat box how much of the sky you think is covered by clouds here. So a good strategy for this is imagining all those clouds are smushed into some of the boxes. Are the clouds covering 50% of the sky that we see here? Is it covering 25%? Is it covering 100% of the sky? So kind of make your best estimation and chat it into the chat box on what percentage of this portion of the sky you think is covered. Okay, Elizabeth is saying 50% is her estimation, 25%. Okay, I'll let a few more come in. And as you can see, it definitely takes a second to kind of learn this skill and to practice this skill. And you can see why repeating the sky survey every single time a Science Action Club is in session is a really good way for these youth to get their observation skills better and better every session and be able to practice the skill. Okay, Chaz is saying 25. I'm seeing lots of 25s. Holly's saying 20%. Okay, great. And you can also see, even in this chat box, we still have to have a little back and forth to reach a consensus on what we think is the cloud cover for the sky observation there. So you can see that there will be plenty of healthy discussion that happens at your club to have just one observation submitted for that club each time. Okay. Okay. Oh, somebody's saying at home, 90% of the sky is covered, and in the photo, 25. Amberly's saying 35%. Awesome. I'm glad some people are able to access their own sky at home. Hopefully you can do that after this call too and pop your head out, get some sunshine. Okay, I'm going to click over to our next slide, and we're going to use our next tool here. Here is our sky color strip. So for this one, a little bit easier to determine what our data will be here, but I want to remind you to look at the darkest portion of the sky. And that's the color that we're going to be identifying today. And again, if we were outdoors, we'd be holding this strip up just comfortably above our shoulders at a 45-degree angle to get that that sky color for the day. So go ahead and make your observation and let me know what color you think the sky would be for that day. The options from the lightest to the darkest is milky, pale blue, light blue, blue, and then deep blue. So any ideas on what color you think the deepest part of the sky is in this picture? Okay, Mikkel and Elizabeth are saying deep blue. Amberly's saying milky for where she is. Awesome. Definitely getting some more deep blues. I think we might be in agreement about the deep blue. That one takes a little bit less discussion and collaboration. Okay, seeing blue at home, fantastic. Great. So you can imagine these youth, it's really exciting to see them observe the sky and practice these skills. And learning all of them together. And as you would imagine, week by week, if you are doing Science Action Club on a weekly cycle, this is something that changes, and they can really see the differences in weather and even the differences in climate as they practice this skill more and more. Great, so let's recap. I'll go back to our very relaxing picture here with the water and the clouds. I find it very calming. But we were just able to, in a few minutes, practice being citizen science. So I hereby certify you all as citizen science. This is data that we can submit to the Globe Observer, which would go up to NASA. So I think we all basically work for NASA now. I think that's totally okay to say. But you can see the access to enjoy citizen science and to be a part of citizen science is really low. It's really easy for us to be able to engage in this scientific research and be a part of the scientific community. And what we do as Science Action Club is really try to break down those barriers and provide a step-by-step format for folks to be able to do this in their programs. So highlighting a little bit of what it looks like in the nitty-gritty part of Science Action Club. What we just walked through is actually what what a training would look like in Science Action Club. These screenshots that you see here are from our online training, which is a platform and a resource that we developed in-house. We made it all ourselves. And we really tried to make it fun and engaging through games, through background knowledge, through investigations, so that staff are prepared and comfortable, and most importantly, excited to teach these citizen science concepts and these activities to the youth that they're working with. And it's a fluid resource, so it's definitely an opportunity to start thinking about what a virtual summer camp might look like, or what a summer camp might look like in our new normal, and what we can kind of reconfigure and rethink about to really keep youth engaged to each other, keep youth engaged to your program, and to nature, most importantly, as well. So outside of our online training that we have as a resource, we also provide training of trainers. So if you are a person in your community that wants to get this type of resource out to a lot of different clubs and a lot of different programs, you can become a Science Action Club trainer, and we can work with you to be that fantastic STEM ambassador in your community. And we also can work with your programs in general to think about customized trainings and meeting you where you're at. What are the needs of your program, and how can we help you provide coaching and support and hands-on practice for STEM, and a professional learning community so that you can be successful in your own STEM implementation. So I do want to call out before I transition into questions that Science Action Club is run on sliding scale fee structure. So our program fees do help keep our program sustainable. We are working out of a nonprofit ourselves, and it's based on the annual operating budget. We have two kit options. So the full kit if you want to start, and a refill kit if you have done Science Action Club a few times and you need some new materials. And each of these price points includes the training, so you'll have access to that online training, and it also includes the guidebook. So you have all the materials and the activities that you need to walk through all of the lessons and the resources with your youth. This is a sliding scale, and it is a conversation starter. Science Action Club never wants cost to be a barrier to access. And I will say that again for emphasis, we do not want cost to be a barrier to access. We are here to help support you make a pitch to funders to get this in your program, or to discuss other ways we can get this to you. Our ultimate goal is to really build up the excitement of science with youth, and the capacity of you and your staff to teach these STEM resources too. So that is our ultimate goal, but I did want to call this out. Now I will click here to this slide. I have a few more comments, but I'm happy in our last about 10 minutes together to answer any questions that you have. So please chat them in if you do. But on this page, I gave you two opportunities to connect with us a little bit more after this webinar. So the first one is that program page. You can learn a lot more about our program there, read through some resources, but most importantly, on that program page is where you can find the Connect to NASA lesson that has the SKY survey within it. So that is the citizen science observations that we walked through today, that you can use that resource right now, this afternoon if you want to, and it has all of the linked resources that you need within that PDF. So you'll be able to print the sky color strip at home and be able to do that there, or do it in a virtual environment. So I definitely encourage you to navigate there and find those resources. And I also have our email listed as well. If anybody wants to start a conversation about Science Action Club in your community, or if you just have more extended questions, we are definitely here for you to help answer those. So I'm really excited. I will pause there and see if we have any questions in our last few minutes together. I should put some Jeopardy music on at this point, I think. Definitely some Jeopardy music. I'll make a note for next time to have some background music going. Awesome. Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm so glad to engage in some citizen science with everybody today. I will call out, I'm happy to stay on the line for the last 10 minutes of the program, but we do have a exit survey that UAN is asking you to fill out. So as you're thinking of any questions you have, you can chat them in and I'll hang out on the line, but definitely end your time with us doing this exit survey. So you can QR code it here. And then I think Angel is gonna chat it into, he beat me to it. He chatted into that chat box, so please fill that out. We'd love to learn a little bit more about your thoughts today and what you responded to, what you're curious about a little bit more. Again, I'll hang out here on the line and sip my last few sips of coffee. Feel free to chat at any questions you have. Thank you, Elizabeth. Oh, great question, Amberly. She was asking to participate in City Nature Challenge. We can just upload to the app. It is as easy as that. You can get the iNaturalist app, get your account, and it's really as simple as taking a picture of whatever you are observing, insect, plant, maybe one of your kids even, and uploading it onto that app. And the artificial intelligence is really exciting that it will kind of start to prompt you with things that are that it thinks it is, that it thinks it's observing. So if you uploaded a flower, it'll tell you, oh, we think maybe it's this species. And to become research grade observation, you need to have two people in the community affirm that species. So once you have one observation and another one, those two people are to confirm the species, then it's research grade and it's able to use. It's been really easy when I've uploaded. I've seen in as little as 24 hours, my observations become research grade. So it's really simple to use. And once you start observing, you're considered to be a part of City Nature Challenge. So you can practice this weekend. Chaz is asking for the trainer program. Do you have a link or form with information on how to start that process? Great question, Chaz. Thank you. On that program page, so calacademy.org/SAC, the acronym for Science Action Club, there's an enrollment form on there where you can start to give us information, or you can just email us to start that conversation. We know this is kind of a bigger conversation and a back and forth that we want to have and making sure we're reaching each other's goals. So feel free to email scienceactionclub@calacademy.org or visit that program page and fill out an enrollment form. Great question, Chaz. Thank you. And I'm right by my window as well, so I keep popping my head out and seeing what clouds I can observe. Very few today in San Francisco, which is not characteristic. Usually we have an obscured sky, which is what Globe would call, and what we in San Francisco call fog, lots of heavy fog. And we affectionately call our fog in San Francisco Carl. So Carl the fog is usually what is obscuring the sky with a lot of our Globe observations that we do here. Oh, Kelly's sharing a really fantastic story about her being a citizen science and seeing road runners Ooh, preparing their next meal is fascinating. Felt like a citizen scientist. That's so exciting. And hearing those stories from adults makes me think about how much more powerful that is for youth as well when they have those observations and they can have those nuggets of science connection and nature connection and their own experiences. Thank you for sharing, Kelly. And Amberly loves Carl as well. Yes, I do too. Great. Thank you, everybody. I think if there aren't any more questions, I'll sign off myself. Thank you to UAN and thank you to everybody for joining. This is a really exciting time.
Thank you again, Rachel. We appreciate you and your support. And
Thank
hopefully
you,
we'll see
Angel.
you soon. Yeah, we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Bye.
See ya. All right, everybody. See you guys next time. Adios.